Good afternoon and welcome into the Paladins Pro Circuit Week 5. My name is Finch, and I am joined here on the desk by Will, Gore, Miser, Newberry, and Gore. We've got a big day lined up here in Paladins, and here I am 5 weeks in. I feel like I've said that now 5 times. That's because every week good matches are lined up, and in no region is that more true than here in Europe, where unless you're District 69, it is up in the air for you every week.
And honestly, with some of the roster changes, we saw like a 5-game set for District 69 last week.
Right.
It seems like things maybe are a little less sure of them. Of course, we'll have to see how things go as they get, I guess, everything rolling for them as they go forward. Because a lot of the upcoming matches, and I think Europe is the best example of this, I mean, you've got 5 people who are fighting for that #1 spot. District 69, because of the early lead they have, are pretty much going to be hanging out up there for a little while, but everybody is still shooting up for the stars right now, and I think none other than these first 2 teams that we're going to be watching today.
And we'll be looking at Onslaught and Selestial Esports. Selestial Esports, you should certainly recognize that's Birkin, Klosar, and TooTTooT, and the boys' squad. Onslaught, we're going up against them. And I know Selestial are down there at that 2-2 rank. Onslaught doing a little bit worse at 1-3. So this is a big matchup. Onslaught could potentially be pushed further down to the bottom as a result of this, or maybe Celestial could use this as a stepping off point to try and separate themselves from those other 2-2 teams. And I'm talking a little bit about where everyone is currently right now in those standings. We should be able to take a look at those in just a moment. The D69 match, though, that's another big one, Gore Miser, that you just talked about. You know, are they going to be able to stay undefeated, or are they, you know, a bit more mortal now? They've had some changes. We'll have our chance to see that as well. But as you can tell, it is I said it last week, it's a 5-car pileup after D69, man. Everyone else is just battling.
I mean, Chroma Space last week were able to kind of turn around. They've been trying out some different metas, and so it was the question mark of when will this finally work for them. Last week, they finally got it to work for them. But, I mean, 2-2, 2-2, what was that? 2-2, and then 1-3, 1-3. Like, everyone is just right next to each other. And when it comes to specifically this matchup that we're going to be watching, Celestial going up against Onslaught, which a lot of people might remember as Flashpoint, it's kind of weird to me because when I look at specifically where Onslaught is, it doesn't connect properly. Like, the wires feel like they're crossed somewhere. It's very similar to how the actual Flashpoint in North America now are doing as well, where it's just something doesn't seem to click. They shouldn't be as low as they are. I think today might turn that around just because that's usually kind of the kick you need to get into gear.
We'll be going to Serpent Beach here first, and this map has been the playground for a lot of those odd compositions, hasn't it? The triple DPS double supports seem to do rather well here. This is the maps where IO gets valued a lot, where we see sometimes just the one sort of off tank, like an Ashe or something like that, come out. What are you expecting here in Serpent Beach, Gore?
I wouldn't be surprised to see IO priority. I think on Serpent Beach and some of the other maps, actually notably some that aren't banned, like Shattered Desert comes to my mind as well, are the maps where IO is going to be able to be in control. And also with the way Europe has kind of transitioned, IO has become the essential, like, we only want to run a single off tank, or we don't want to run any tanks.
Right.
You have IO, you put Luna on the point, and all of a sudden it becomes easy to ignore having a front line in the game or being able to kind of shy away or bring in someone, maybe just a Ruckus even, to make it work through, where it's like, yeah, you're not our point presence. You're just tanky extra damage to be on the side. But it's interesting, and this is a really weird thing to notice. Onslaught, as they were Flashpoint, like, they banned Frog Isle, and I think this is the first time I've seen Frog Isle not banned out by them in 2+ years. I mean, it is I think the biggest showcase that the meta is changing, that they no longer care whether or not that map gets picked up. And it's actually been one of the more common ones as well. So going to maps, you know, especially with the new meta, looking at the priority on supports, I think we're going to start seeing maybe some things open up and other maps close off. Like, my mind comes to Bazaar, which is banned out almost every single week we get to come through. Yeah. And it is just because I feel like, especially in this meta, it's nothing but brawly.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? It's an odd map with like, you know, kind of multiple levels to it. It's an open map as well, so it's one where you could be taking lots of damage. Maybe teams, like you said, don't want to always sort of be fighting like that map can be. So we're in now to the picks and bans here for Serpent Beach. Remember, that's where we're going to be heading, and it is going to be Celestial Esports in that first pick spot.
And, you know, I kind of was skirting around the discussion. Well, there's the IO, so at least something I said is still somewhat relevant. But the one thing that actually comes to my mind is going to be looking at Slopodopolous, specifically going up against ProsperLogic. Both of these players, Slop coming from a console background, I believe Prosper, unless things have changed, still playing with his controller right now, being able to come forward. Very heavy Victor play, very heavy Vivian play, and I wonder if that's going to determine like a winner based on how much comfort they can get out of it. We've seen a lot of bans against Onslaught the last couple of weeks being that Victor, and so trying to target that away, I honestly think for both of these teams, it's going to be a big pick.
Destroy our enemy.
Well, Ruckus is big. We've talked about it before, but he can kind of use that dash to get up to some nice points. He can serve kind of as another flank almost, really, instead of another true front line or anything to think about in that regard. I'm a bit surprised, though. I mean, Androxus, I feel like, always does really, really well on Serpent Beach here, Goremizer.
Yeah.
Are you expecting to be heavily prioritized, or would you have even liked to ban for him?
I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a little bit of a backseat. I don't think of anyone on Onslaught as standing out as, yes, we have to get Androxus. So Celestial can maybe slow roll that one out and try to test the waters just to make sure that they don't maybe counterpick anything. Of course, if you get what they have right now, like Ruckus, maybe not so much, but Jenos and Lian, they're your typical like hit scan anti-air champions that are going to be able to come through. So if you're thinking of like seeing a Drogos anytime soon, I've got bad news for you. And also Lian is kind of the anti-flank, so she helps ward away things like the EV, like that Maeve that was banned out, the things that fall into that area, and she can help track down an Andro.
Well, that's going to have to be the job now as Onslaught do lock that in. They've also got Furia and Whirlwind, so already this team-fighting presence around these two big support ultimates is going to be tough for Celestial to deal with. Whirlwind and Inflame sometimes just seal games by themselves, not to even mention Andro and his potential damage. Still, though, really light on frontline here, Goremizer. I mean, I guess we can say Ruckus. I mean, technically, yes, he does fit that bill, but Buck can kind of fill that role a little bit sometimes too, but this is a thin draft. On the other side, though, Onslaught are going to lead with the con.
Yeah, realistically, Selestial Esports, this kind of composition is we will overwhelm you so much with damage that it doesn't matter how many supports you have. They're going to get melted down. Ruckus, like you said, as a frontline, he's kind of tactically just damage. And Buck, even though he's tankier overall with the flanks, he is definitely going to be able to find a lot of really good shots. You're looking at this all centered around the Luminary Jenos, going for the cooldown, trying to get that heal up as much as possible and onto as many people as possible to ensure that that damage is going to be as well spread out as it can be.
He's going to have a lot to try and keep up with as it's Grover Furia on the other side for him. But we are just about ready to move into Serpent Beach, and it continues here in Europe. This move away from a traditional sort of point tank here, Goremizer. That's been the story, I feel like, the entirety of the beginning of this season. And I mean, you know, we can talk a little bit about this con here for Onslaught. He kind of, to me, I feel like kind of has to be that big difference maker here.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that it's going to just mesh. Again, with the way things have been going, off-tanks are pretty huge. We've seen a lot of Ashe kind of showing up, but Khan, I mean, you're given a free kill at the beginning of the second round, right, as long as you hold on to your ultimate. So it's something that you can look at Trensiq having a lot of potency with, but he also gives a lot of pressure.
Well, you mentioned Slop coming into the game, and of course you'd be correct there, Gore. He finds that first kill in the iGoodlad, sets up a favorable trade. They do lose TooTTooT for it, but Celestial still with position, still with the numbers advantage. Onslaught got about 9% of this initial fight, but now it's Celestial set up in their defensive positioning and starting to rack up a bit of percent. But Onslaught don't feel pressed by this. They're just going to wait a little bit, regroup with their squad, and hop back in. They have plenty of time. The percent's not racking up or anything to make sure they can find another contest. Slop has to give up his positioning and fall back down, but he holds on to that high ground. TooTToot's back in the fray, but just as soon as I say it, Skeppii sends him back.
And this is the downside of their composition. Their composition is really good at overwhelming you with damage, but I mean, who's going to stand on the objective, right? You don't have anyone, especially on a map like Serpent Beach, who can kind of withstand that much for that long. Buck maybe being one of them, Ruckus being one of them. But as items come online, it's going to be difficult. Cauterize and Wreck are both going to affect those two champions pretty heavily. And then who do you stick down there? The Jenos? No, he's going to get melted. So I think Onslaught, they can slow roll every point fight as long as they're on even footing, and they can come back and do what they're doing here where they retake.
And they can just kind of have Trensiq on this con, sit in the center, and who will really contest. They give up that position for now. The Inflame is out, though. That tells me Onslaught to try and make a move, but someone let Celestial know. A double kill for TooTTooT as he finds two more members. This forces in Trensiq, but Trensiq now getting shredded by Slopodopolous on the Koga, who does find himself another kill. Stop me is the one that gets credit for that. But that was a bunch of kills coming in favor of Onslaught. Not enough, though, to stop the cap. Celestial able to capture.
I mean, just being able to come in, it looked solid there for Onslaught for a little bit. But I think there's something to be said about a 95 ammo in his clips Slopodopolous running around.
It's a lot, isn't it?
I mean, just running in normally 70, it feels like a lot. But as with every champion, it always feels like when you use that last like 3 or 4 bullets, even in those ones that have 70 bullets like a Koga, it's going to be great. But Znost, that was just such an insane shot.
Yeah, that's a big ult that he lined up. TooTTooT capitalizes as well by getting rid of Goodlad, and maybe there's a chance to look for a couple of staggers here from Celestial and break apart this defense from Onslaught. The cavalry has now arrived, but look at this positioning TooTTooT's able to get, and almost gets the kill there. That would have been huge to shut down that Vivian and remove a big source of damage, but even still, Onslaught just barely now establishing themselves position. Celestial with a ton of time to work with as the grab comes through from Trensiq. He isolates TooTTooT, and that should slow down this push for Celestial for a bit.
And that's where the control from this con is going to be, all around that commander's grab, right? Because running something like Vortex Grip allows you to set up any and everyone on Celestial Esports pretty much for death. I think the only person that might be able to escape it would be the Ruckus. Maybe Buck if he's able to heal, get the DR right as he goes into the stun, and then immediately jump out. But even then, he's going to be cutting it close. So Con, especially in tight corridors like this, just set you up to be stunned out and locked down for the team.
TooTTooT's doing work for the squad, though, dropping the Koga ultimate as well as Slopodopolous. Things look favorable again as Prosper and Trensiq both go down. That just leaves the Furia a sitting duck, a triple kill for Slopodopolous. And Onslaught might not even get to find a way to touch. Slopodopolous keeping them zoned all the way back inside their spawn, and that makes a 2-0 a successful push for Celestial.
Very impressive for them to be able to do so, and so commandingly as well. And as much as you can look at, like, the streaks are burning everywhere, there's something to be said about Slop being 6-1-8 that tends to draw my attention, right? Like, everyone's doing their part, but this Koga is kind of running the show right now. And it really is kind of blowing my mind. Yeah, he's running Memento 5 there, so increasing his maximum ammo by 25. That's not a card I'm used to seeing, but it's hard to argue against 95 bullets. Everything else on this looks pretty standard for a Koga, having the Tenacious and the Trigger Happy in there, something to prove as well. But you are 95 shots. You're running Surprise 2, so every time he shadow steps, he's healing and getting ammo back in that clip. So that 95, depending on how many times you see him dash, if he uses all 3, is effectively going up to 125 bullets that he's going to be able to throw out before having to reload.
Yeah, that'll set you up for a pretty good game. I've been impressed with what TooTTooT's been able to do here so far for Celestial as well on this Ruckus. Really has been creating a ton of space. And yet again, Celestial seem to come out on top in this neutral fight here on the Waterfall side. Still no percent built up over it. They're probably looking for picks more than anything. They don't want to jump down to that shooting gallery and become a target. But this time, Slop gets picked. Prosper is the one that gets the kill. Znost can't repeat the magic from earlier with that ultimate, but TooTTooT picks up some of that extra slack, finds a kill into Prosper and re-even these numbers, but he gets hunted down. Rather, that Stop Me that gets hunted down. A good stun from Goodlad.
I can't believe TooTTooT not only got out of that, but he's still alive back there. He's just hanging out as a Ruckus in the backline, going to get pretty much fully healed off. Has his emitter shield so he can just jump right back in. And this amount of control, that's going to be immeasurable for the team.
It's been huge, even going forward and helping Slop get that kill on the Skeppii. Closar keeps things moving in their favor, making it a 2-for-1, even though they lose TooTTooT by getting rid of Trensiq. And that's why they're standing so comfortably out there, building up the percent. They're up to 90 now, Gore, very nearly. And Onslaught struggling to find someone who can make their way into touch. They're not going to get one. Now it's 3-0 for Celestial, and Onslaught can't get their footing.
Realistically, what we're seeing, the one flank, the Andro, you were talking about him being solid on Serpent Beach, and I want that to be known that is more true than anything I think could have been said in Bigs and Bams. But unfortunately for him, there's not really a lot of wiggle room for him because it's the one flank versus 2 flanks. Who is he looking to lock down? And this one, realistically, the only person he can regularly get into the backline and distress is Lian, and she's the anti-flank. Like, he's not going to 100% have that amount of control. And instead, you're sitting back trying to protect your Vivian, your Furia, your Grover from a Buck and a Koga. You just don't have the damage to deal with what Celestial are throwing out at you. Kind of showcasing, again, what we've seen out of 5 randoms, out of Chroma Space, out of these other teams in Europe when they're pulling out these no-tank compositions. It just looks so solid.
The Jenos ults have been great too. Znost finding another pick, trying to open the number up, and a little bit of a surprise move from TooTTooT as he comes up from underneath. I don't think they were ready. The whirlwind comes out to slow him down. They do end up losing Slopodopolous as well as TooTTooT. Onslaught do good work to slow down this push. They needed those kills. They needed an answer to that dive from TooTTooT. For me, it's been two-pronged. It's been Slopodopolous shredding anyone who ends up in front of his crosshairs, and it's been TooTTooT diving in with reckless abandon.
And honestly, that's as weird as it is, that's kind of his role, right? The entire team of Onslaught is a grenade, and he just throws his body out there, sees what he can get done, especially when you have something like the Hexafire. In a draft like this, one good shot from a Hexafire will just eradicate the team for them, and that's exactly what he's going to go for.
Oh my god, Trensiq never stood a chance for Miser. And now who's going to be the one that stands on the point? TooTTooT continuing to be a problem. Double kill for Slopodopolous as well as Skeppii and stormavatar both fall. That is it. Celestial take the victory 4-0 on Serpent Beach. Yeah. Sorry if you maybe got up to get some water or blinked, but we are done with map 1.
That is, I think, honestly, more impressive coming down out of Celestial than anything. A draft like that, it's something that, like, if you go back in time and someone, like, pocket picks Fish Market, that's the kind of draft they pull out and they win on it, and you're just like, all right, well, you only got away with that because it's Fish Market. But Serpent Beach, also right now, is feeling very similar. And again, I think Znost, first off, had some insane ults. The fact that he hit as many as he did is very impressive for a Jenos, because that is much higher of a ratio than you typically get out of your support. But you've got so much distraction coming down from Stop Me and Closar, and Slop just couldn't be stopped. I mean, he had, what, one death throughout that entire thing? 67,000 damage. This Koga was just melting through Trensiq, melting through Skeppii, melting through Storm, melting through Goodlad, and if he happened to be standing there, melting through Prosper as well.
And you talked about a little bit too, right, about how they needed something to try and keep Slopodopolous in check on this Koga, and I just feel like that's what really never materialized for Onslaught. That was the answer that they couldn't quite find. I mean, anyone who spent a little bit too much time in his line of sights got melted quickly, and they weren't able to punish him either. He was disengaging, getting back at, healing up, and then coming back in for another fight, all the while plenty of room for him to operate, because all these heads have to turn around and look at this Ruckus that's double killing us.
Yeah, Again, it's so difficult to choose who to look at when you're trying to fight Selestial Esports because, granted, there's 4 people for this Jenos to throw out his 3 marks. Late game, you can start to get 4 marks out there, but, you know, late game is, what, 7 minutes in at this point? Like, it's not happening often for them to every single person have that mark. But, I mean, you're in a fight, and you see Ruckus go in. And, well, that Ruckus is Luminary boosted, and he has a shield, and you haven't won any points, so you don't have the credits to get Wrecker 3 yet, so you can't melt through him. You don't have enough credits to get the Cauterize 2, so dealing with the Buck is a nuisance. You can't really get to that Vivian because everyone shreds you by the time you get back there. And then the last person to try and lock down would be that Koga, and it's just very difficult. I think they overwhelmed with so many high-priority targets that you have to take down, and yet there was no one to look at. You couldn't get past their wall. And especially since it was covered in spikes, you couldn't even climb the wall. You couldn't do anything to the wall because it was just demolishing you in the process.
Well, it looks like we're going to be going into Bright Marsh here next, Goremizer. And Bright Marsh is one of those maps where I feel like we see a lot of different stuff happening. Sometimes we see them get run over, like for a 4-0. A lot of the times you can see Bright Marsh kind of stall out on those pushes, sometimes too. Are you expecting we're going to see more of the same with these very loose front lines here, if any at all?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Celestial tried to run something back like that. This is actually a really good map, I would argue, for that style, because it might end up causing some trouble when you're shaking around and trying to go for the push, but it might just give you that edge you need, right? It's going to be exactly what you need, especially around the point, to control apartments. You can control dockside if you have something like an Andro, or I keep throwing his name out there, even though I know he's not going to get picked, but like a Pip to be able to bounce around. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Celestial go for. Mainly with the Ruckus gun, I think Ashe is probably going to jump up in this. Khan is going to be very potent as well, so we'll have to keep our eyes on them.
That's another Maeve ban as well. Perhaps worried about that midnight and what she can do under the cloak of darkness or something like that. The Victor band away as well, and the Io, so they have to go to some other area. As you mentioned, I think Ashe does jump up in terms of her value, but looks like it'll be the Zhin being first picked here by Onslaught, and we've seen him run, you know, alongside that Yomi here lately, Gore. So I mean, he certainly looks strong at times. It's just there's a lot of really good picks still out there. Is Zhin one you're taking first overall?
I don't know. I think Yomi is going to be very solid for him in terms of control, especially against something that's a very heavy damage composition. That bonus damage, especially being able to slice through everybody's going to be great. But yeah, Bomb King, you know, yeah, he still exists. This is one of my favorite maps for Bomb King. The only one I would argue is maybe better for him, maybe two others, would be Ice Mines and Jag Falls. So it's interesting to see him, I guess, just forgotten for Lauren here, and thrown to the wayside by these teams because of how potent that blaster can be in terms of control.
He does a lot through some of these narrow windows or something like that, or any kind of small avenues he's able to find. So it'll be the Vivian and the Jenos picked up early for Celestial. Meanwhile, Onslaught back onto this Grover. They're going to pick up the Ashe this time too. So they're trying to take one of those best sort of off tanks away from Celestial in case they are thinking of running just one. And I think Ashe can solo tank pretty well. You talked about it already. She can buy a ton of time. Sometimes she could be enough of a damage center her own as well.
And are unwanted, stranger.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited to see her come through. The Jenos not being on her side might make things a little more interesting. I like Ashe with a Luminary boost, but she does a lot of good damage. And again, and this is something that, again, won't matter as strongly here, but she's a good anti-flank just because exploding shots makes it very easy to track someone in the sky. You don't necessarily have to hit them. You'll still have some splash damage going up against them. So you'll be able to control and corral around the point as well. I love Ashe as a frontline. I think she can main tank as well as off tank very well. She can change her style up. I think that might be the cornerstone key for Onslaught's control, especially with something like a Willo behind it and the double healer. It feels like a solid draft. Still kind of surprised there's no Bomb King and that he's just been tossed again off to the side.
Me too. He does so much damage on this map. Can even bring some control as well. I think Bomb King certainly plenty strong, but it'll be the Androxus that rounds things out here for Celestial. And the Andro didn't look great. I think it was Onslaught that picked it up last time and couldn't quite make that one work. So we'll see if Celestial can make it work as we move into game number 2. It's Bright Marsh that we are heading to here as well, Gormizer. And both teams rocking with one tank, the Inara on one side, the Ashe on the other. Inara much more, though, of a traditional point tank, as opposed to Ashe, you mentioned earlier, has that flexibility.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested to see the Inara of all things. Like, we've seen Barrack still picked up, but Inara, like, point tanks were kind of shoved off to the side, especially, like, well, I say especially in North America. There's some teams that just don't feel like they're worth it anymore, and then some teams that still feel like, well, maybe she has her place. And I'm still among it. I love Inara. She is, I would argue, my most played champion. And it's just, what does she do? Well, she gives you a ton of damage reduction, a lot of control around the point. I love her wall. Same reason I love, well, any wall character in any game I'm always going to fall in love with. And then you also get the fact that she's a healing spark. She works so well, even with something like a Jenos, because you can just pump her full of heals even if they don't matter.
Okay, so it's suddenly a team wipe for Celestial. Closar gets to the back to finish it off with a double kill. But, Gore, you didn't even get to finish your intro before Onslaught had already lost this first fight. And it's going to be a desperate struggle back in to try and find a touch. 54% already racked up. TooTTooT can step forward and play a little bit of zoning. He's keeping ProsperLogic entirely out of the fight. They are just stuck inside these narrow apartments. I don't think they're even going to get another touch.
That's me trying to just, like, I'm assuming, like, okay, 2 kills, that's not too surprising. Like, maybe we can just talk about it. By the time I finish a sentence, all 5 of them are gone, which is more impressive than anything from Celestial. And it's kind of showcasing, again, something that's been kind of bizarre to me, and maybe showcasing exactly why certain teams are on the rise and fall. Some teams are built and were built around what was meta, right? And so transitioning into the new meta is a little bit difficult for them. I talked about it. Onslaught kind of surprises me to see them so low in the standings. The same thing can be said about Flashpoint over there in North America. But when you have a team like Celestial who just seems to have adapted to this meta and are playing it at this level, it's just so difficult to deal with them. I mean, they're overwhelming you. They are taking these fights that admittedly you should feel comfortable with, but it's hard to win when what, your Willow's going to get shot down by an Andro and a Vivian and a Jenos. If your Zhin pops out, then all of a sudden Cassie's going to be able to bonk them. Like, there's just so many, I don't even want to call them counter picks, but so much counter play available for Selestial that it makes it, I don't want to say easy, but definitely a smoother transition for them to capture points and then turn it into a push.
This is the first fight that's looked good for Onslaught, really, the whole time that we have been here on Bright Marsh. They find a couple of kills and force Selestial back, but look how far they got the payload. They have a ton of time to work with on this next push. They still have Inara ult as well as the Jenos ult in the back pocket too. If they feel like they want to use them to try and get this cap into the, really, I feel like we can just go ahead and say 5 that are available now for Onslaught for this next defense. It's TooTTooT who's in there first. Damage coming from the side as Andro heads up as well, but still not quite ready to push in yet. They've actually left TooTTooT to die up there, so Selestial will slow down again, and Onslaught have bought themselves some time.
Yeah, they throw out the Fae Flight and the Inflame. Just a little curious to me. It doesn't even buy them that much, which is even worse for them at the end of the day, because those two ults, while they can charge pretty quickly, are going to still take time. I mean, 20% right now for the Inflame. Maybe being able to get that up to 50 won't be too bad by the end of the round, but that's a lot to invest just to hold off for maybe 30 seconds there.
And this is the flank that Klosar wanted. He has the Accursed Arm in the back pocket, dashes up, and he will proc the ultimate. He's going to drop all of it down to secure the kill onto ProsperLogic and secure the push as well. Selestial 2-0, and that's 6-0 in the set so far here as well, as Onslaught haven't been able to get anything to work.
And, you know, my mind just keeps going back. If you watched Paladins last year, a lot of the info that you knew about the game, like about the individual champions, that's all fine. You can keep that. Anything you knew about team comps, and I would even argue like when to save your ults, kind of feels like you can throw it out the window, because these teams have been getting more aggressive, right? I mean, Klosar, Znost, both just kind of throw out their ults for the sake of throwing it out, and it helps them close the round and get the conversion. And normally this is where I would break into a, oh, well, now you're coming in at an ult disadvantage. Maybe that's going to make a big difference. But they've been playing so aggressively and in such control already that I don't know if it's going to really slow them down that much. It just means now this Andro won't be able to 4-shot 2 people if they happen to group together. Instead, he's going to have to 8-shot 2 people individually, because he's just going to find shots like that.
Yeah, the Willo never gets a chance to even play the game, man. Skeppii gets caught off this flank from Klosar. I hardly call it a flank. He just walked up to the side and caught them entirely unawares, very nearly. Cassie able to find the push there from Stop Me, but look at the percent lead that's building up. TooTTooT has set up shop on the point, 69% already in the back pocket, and they really haven't even won a fight just yet, and it's trouble on the side here for Trensiq. Indeed it is. Znost gets the kill, and in comes Klosar. Are you trying to retreat? Jeez. Well, there's nowhere to run. He shuts down Goodlad as well, and they're right back on the point.
And I'm just excited to see like how aggressive they're playing, but with the way the meta has shifted, Finch, I mean, looking at the fact that Jenos is playing a big role, if I'm Onslaught, I'm excited to see them try and ban him away. I feel like that's a lot of where Selestial are kind of building their draft around, and honestly, it's enabling them so much. They don't need a second support. They don't need anything else, because while they might be easier to kill off outright, their healing's not going to be great, the damage output is just ridiculous and so difficult to deal with. Even with 2 supports behind you, they are not able to keep everyone topped off. The Furia and this Grover are getting everything worked out of them, and unfortunately for them, it's still not enough.
I mean, and just think about the kill that he got onto the Willo, right? I mean, was there ever a chance or any healing to come out? It was just a pick that happened almost instantaneously. It's just, I don't even know if they're getting much chance to respond because of how quickly some of these members are falling. TooTTooT aggressive, though, in apartment side. This is finally a good push now for Onslaught to try and find some breathing rooms, a little bit of defense where they can make it back out. But yet again, it's a decent amount that's been pushed off this early time here that Selestial have spent. So they got plenty of time. Last time they did it, just with a couple of ultimates, forced their way in. So I'm not counting Selestial out of this push at all at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And the other thing I think, especially I have to mention it before the game ends, because at this minute it could happen any time now. You're looking at how potent some of the picks for Selestial have been, but I think, again, all brought in by this Jenos and made to look good. Granted, by well execution, but because they're Luminary boosted and they can just melt you down. I'm not seeing a first pick performance out of that Zhin just yet, and that's really
Good
where
point.
my eyes are going. I'm looking over there, and I'm like, you know, he's not a bad pick. He's good on this map. He can play really well, but it's just not been providing much. The only time I was able to remember he was in the game was because we switched his camera for a little bit there, and I was like, oh right, I forgot they picked him. Otherwise, it hasn't been very potent. Finally being able to pick up a kill there. Maybe this is the opening for Prosper.
Maybe so. He does finally shut down Slopodopolous, and it's exactly what Onslaught need here at this point. He maybe even find a bit of a stagger on the TooTTooT. Yep, that's going to really eat into this little remaining time that Celestial have. I believe the Cursed Arm came out there as well. Stop.me ends up getting the kill onto Trensiq. Looks like absolutely that Androxus ult was used. Prosper is in a close battle for his life. How does he manage to maneuver his way out of there and still buying time? But Stop.me eventually shuts him down. Not a lot of time on the clock here, though, for Celestial Core. They've got to get this done here and now. A good kill for Skeppii shuts down Slop, who's barely had time to be in these last couple of fights. Decent positioning over to the right, and TooTTooT and Stop.me have found some critical kills. Maybe Celestial can keep making this push happen after all. They're in that OT, but now they've lost Closar as well on the Androxus. Things get harder. They shut down Trensiq, but remember the defenders will be back much faster than the aggressors here in this spot. But a good shot from Stop.me making a double. He shuts down Prosper as well as stormavatar. Another one comes in, and Celestial get another map here on Bright Marsh. I thought that one might be over.
I honestly thought we were going to be sitting around like, okay, 3-1. Where can we talk about for Onslaught to fight back into this? And then you just have Cassie hitting some ridiculously good shots. And at the end of the day, as one of my favorite things to say about Paladins, there's ways you use your ults, there's ways you can use your abilities to open up the door and make a difference. But it's always still a shooter at base. And while Stop.me and Closar seem to be shooting incredibly well, Stop.me at the very end there had almost no issue being able to find some flick shots. I mean, turning around, being able to control ProsperLogic, get rid of iGoodlad, Storm, and just keep on the ball right there. Like you had pointed out, once you lose Slop, once you lose Closar, like once everything starts slowing down there for Celestial, that's a pause. That should have been a pause and a hold for Onslaught. So I think even more impressive that they find that conversion.
It was impressive. And what's really scary to me about this is that who was the star back when they were on Serpent Beach? Well, that was Slop, right? It was Slop and TooTTooT that made the big plays. We weren't even talking about Stop.me and Closar until we come into Bright Marsh. It's the Cassie that steps up to make the game-ending play, and it's Closar playing the Androxus that was the real nightmare for them throughout those first two. And I think that is what's sort of in the back pocket for Celestial. What makes them so scary is that it is a multi-pronged attack from this team, and really, you never know which one you got to stop this time.
Yeah, I'm actually very, again, just, I don't know where to look on this team. I'm also surprised, I didn't even, like, make the connection that Stop.me I used to see only playing tanks, so seeing him on something like a Cassie and doing that well makes me wonder why I haven't seen that before. Like, now I'm just kind of coming in and collecting it all, but I mean, where do you look? My eyes go to potentially banning out Jenos and things like that, but Onslaught, it feels like maybe there's a fundamental issue that's a little further down the list, not just in the picks and bans that they need to change in order to take down a team like Celestial right now.
Agreed. I don't think you drop 8-0 across two maps if it's just picks and bans, right? There's some execution that where things aren't happening either, but they still have a chance to turn things around here at Gormizer. We see it happen all the time where teams stretch these maps and sets out. So we'll take a quick break, be right back with more Paladins. Welcome back to the Paladins Pro Circuit, Week 5, where we're starting in Europe as we always do. And no, that wasn't some kind of error. We have already moved through those first two maps just that quickly. Serpent Beach and Bright Marsh are already in the rear view mirror. It's Finch and Gormizer here in Gore. As you get ready for this third map, man, something has to change for Onslaught if they want to slow Celestial down.
Well, the good news is that we have seen a lot of games that I think even last week started a set that had two games that were this fast, and then we ended up going 5 games in. 30 minutes passed. I can't remember, where we were, but I think it was Dave who was just like, okay, I got to start getting ready for the next set because, like, we're 30 minutes in. Like, this is looking like it's over. And then about an hour to an hour and a half later, we were still sitting around waiting for the second set to start. So I'm not going to count Onslaught out yet, but they have to make some drastic changes in order for this to turn around the way it has. I mean, it has been an 8-0 for Celestial. It has been very commanding. My eyes fall to the Jenos. We've seen supports playing such a huge role in these last few games. I mean, Onslaught keep going with this double support meta, or at least attempting to, and so far it hasn't been enough. Even though they have all that healing, the damage numbers from Celestial just overwhelm them.
It's a good point, and I think every time Celestial has gotten that Jenos to kind of keep them topped off, to make sure they have that luminary there, so they're doing all this extra damage. It's like you said, I wonder if that's kind of the key, but it's Celestial themselves that take it off the table. They banned that along with the Victor. Meanwhile, Onslaught banned the Vivian, which did put up some good damage last game, as well as the Ruckus, and for the first time, they get to grab Io.
Now, I'm curious as to what Selestial Esports were thinking here. I think if you leave Io and Jenos open there, then you're guaranteed one or the other. And so that's a happy day for pretty much everyone involved. I'm also interested, and this was the same case last week in Europe, and it blew my mind. Where did Rom go? Where did he go from being so high priority to just disappearing? We'll have to, I guess, wait and see as to where he ends up falling up. But banning the Victor has made sense. I think both of these teams have a good Victor, but for Celestial to kind of, I don't want to say shoot themselves in the foot, but to strip away their own strength with the Jenos ban, I want to know what they have in store. I want to know what they're planning on this Warder's Gate.
I do think it is worth mentioning that I believe it's been Onslaught that has been banning away the Maeve every game. Either way, she's been banned out of both games so far. So it's our first time getting to see her, and Celestial pick her up. So maybe Onslaught were a bit worried about this coming in, or Celestial had it really highly valued. And we might finally get to see some of that Maeve value show up as they'll pair that with their Ashe, who we already talked about earlier, and how strong she is.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited to see. And on a map like this as well, wide open, perfect for her to be able to jump around and control the backline. It's going to be very difficult to lock her down. This is where my eyes are not only on Androxus, but Lian, because of that, probably opening up a little bit more. Onslaught going to opt instead for the double flank. This is a very different composition, and I guess I'm just living for it now because, again, everything, if you knew anything about last year, you just ball it up, toss it over your shoulder. It's out of here. This is the 3-support double flank team, and honestly, for Onslaught, I still think it has a lot of groundage. I think Io gives them point control, Furia gives them damage amp, and then Andro and Koga are difficult to lock down.
I just worry, is it quite enough damage? I mean, it is. I mean, it's double flank, right? So it is plenty of damage. I wonder if we're going to see this Koga also with the increased magazine size here this time, and maybe that's what'll happen. But Gore, you are getting that Lian that you asked for here for Celestial as well to round out their comp. It's worth mentioning they were forced down to the Damba because Jenos were banned and like 3 supports were picked on the other side, so they kind of had to go with Damba.
Yeah, that's the one thing, and I guess the best news that we're getting a new support like within the week now as Corvus is going to be released is the fact that with this huge support meta, there's not a whole lot that you can pick through, and you're left, at the very end you get Ying, you have Damba left, not a lot to fall back on. So it looks good, although I'm expecting a lot of stuns, a lot of utility comes out from Amal Damba, and Znost, as we've seen, has no issues with his aim based on what I saw from the 3 times in spaces earlier, so I expect a lot out of him. And again, you pointed it out, but having this Maeve come through for Stop Me, the aim he had on Cassie, now being put onto a banned 2 games in a row Maeve, I hope it impresses. I hope it lives up to the hype I'm giving it in my head. I don't even want to hype it up just in case it falls flat.
I think stormavatar picked up the Haven there as well, but coming right into the gate. 2 kills for Celestial, a double for Stop.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I think a triple kill to open things up. That's not too bad, and a full-on team wipe. Gore, I don't know if there's any analysis. I think they just came out and hit all their shots.
You know what? Here's my analysis, though. The best thing Celestial did, it's not even them, it's Onslaught. They pick Warder's Gate, so it gave me enough time to finish my point before Celestial got the team wipe this time, instead of like on Bright Marsh where I was still talking while it was going on.
They can't even leave!
You know what? I'm pulling up some misses here. Like, there's a lot of different ways to maybe break this one down, but you've got 2 squishies, and the heals are going to be solid behind them, but they need to burst up, and they need to burst faster than the damage from a Lian and a Maeve is going to be able to come through. And you don't have that same burst. Koga doesn't have that same burst. Andro, if he hits some headshots, absolutely can, but this is screaming control from Onslaught more than anything. Or, I'm sorry, from Celestial more than anything. Onslaught have I would argue, maybe a better point composition, but if you start off, with 3 members almost instant dead, there's not much you can do.
I wonder how much of it is just bad luck. They came on the same side and just got caught a little bit unawares by Celestial getting there a bit ahead of them on that initial, I guess we can call it a mid-fight for all that it lasted. Celestial did end up giving up a little bit of ground because they got so aggressive on their zone that Onslaught were able to sort of reestablish themselves, but that's a big kill from Klosar on this Zhin. Maybe pushing forward can happen. Slop has the full wraparound and no one knows that he's here. A double kill completely shatters the backline of Onslaught. Celestial can keep right on pushing.
You know what? Let's just start pulling out the basics. That kill with the ult gives him 50% charge back. I expect to see more kills with this Lian ult coming through as he continues this much aggression. It's going to charge incredibly fast if he can keep up that pace, and that's why these things start to matter, right? In most standard instances, that 50% chargeback is nice because you get it. Back in the day, it used to be nice because you got immunity on your ult, so that would give you maybe an extra reset on that button. But now you're just looking at all-out aggression. You're looking at Assault. You're looking at another free 1,600 damage that he's going to have at 20%.
Prosper does get a kill on the Slopodopolous. They need that, but it is still a 2-for-1. Klosar gets one. Prosper gets a second kill now as he shuts down Stop Me. But look at the push still from this Ashe. Someone has to come in and actually contest. It will be Prosper who completes the killing spree. I mean, I feel like I can call it a triple, but maybe a bit too delayed for my man. He ends up getting 3. Goodlad gets 1 too. And maybe they can finally push back Celestial and find a good defense here for him.
It's definitely feeling nice slowdown. And Warder's Gate, if there's any map to hold them at bay for 20 seconds, this is the one, right? Because it is so wide, it takes them so long just to get back to the objective. And with Defender's advantage, not only the proximity that you're going to have from respawns, but the high ground you have in control should admittedly give you some direct control over this objective and point control.
Well, Klosar got a kill. I think got some help from that Lian ultimate as well. Stop Me has now found a kill of his own, and there's no one in front of the actual payload. Prosper forces his way down, has to dash out, and Celestial get the push. They've now gotten 10 unanswered and a double at the end from Stop Me right towards the end of time. I mean, Celestial are a runaway train. Yeah.
I kind of want to take my, like, how-to Paladins book and just burn it. I don't know if it exists. I'll have to find it. Just everything that used to be true. And, you know, like, we've lived through so many, or I guess I've casted through is the better way to word that, so many different metas where, you know, triple frontline was a big thing. There was a point where quadra frontline was a big thing. Now transitioning into this, especially for Onslaught here, this no tank meta, it's something that we've seen like Chromospace attempting to do where it has worked in the past, but it's not consistent enough, which is the biggest issue. IO is supposed to alleviate that stress, kind of be the counter to the Ashe here, Luna being able to enable it. But with something like this Maeve, especially the way Stop Me is playing, getting to the backline and dealing with these supports, it doesn't matter that you have an Inflame, it doesn't matter that you have Luna, they're gone before they can do anything.
Stop Me uses the mid-lane, gets right back there to Goodlad early on, but it's still a decent fight now for Onslaught. I can just say good. That's 3 in a row they've gotten. Slopodopolous does get back there to take care of Skeppii and at least make it 3 for 2. But this is what Onslaught have been looking for desperately this entire time, was to get some favorable trades, to have IO capturing the point using Luna, and to try and build up this percent before Celestial could stop them. They're up to 99%. They're proccing the overtime, but Celestial has made it back for in time to stall them. But this is going to have to happen now. Basically all in this one push.
You're going to have to continue this onslaught, right? It's a 4v5. Push that issue. Force everything out of them. Get the kills that you can. And man, they go up 10-0 before losing a point, but Celestial finally do lose at least a grip here, Finch. And that showcases what that IO is for. Why Luna can be so important. Hey, we're just going to play it safe and hide behind cover. Let the Fox capture everything.
You're right. I mean, really, what the big difference between that one and the first mid-fight was that they went to different sides of the map at the start. They didn't fight them instantaneously and get wiped, so they were able to build up some nice extra time with Luna capping for them. The Midnight maybe took a little too long from Stop Me as well to find that first kill that he was looking for, so we couldn't rotate back in to help. Here's potentially a big ultimate from Skeppii. This does just kind of force Celestial back a bit, though, as TooTTooT has found himself a nice kill. Prosper stuck in no man's land. He'll fall as well. And with this many deaths, Onslaught might have to slow their push.
It's how slow they go, though, right?
Nice
how
TooTTooT
much you're taking down, right? That's going to make a big difference. Specifically, and I'm going to keep highlighting it, but it's the way Luna works, right? If repositioned here for IO, then the cooldown is just a 3-second before you can redeploy, right? Or reposition it again. if it gets melted down and eliminated around this payload, then that's an 18-second cooldown that you're going to have to eat. It's much longer, much more to deal with. So we're looking towards Celestial, and Maya's potentially having to force some credit buys into something like Bulldozer. It's cheap early on, but maybe it doesn't give enough bang for your buck. You have to invest maybe too much in it. But when IO is kind of what this composition is trying to do, I say go for it.
This looks good, though, doesn't it, for Onslaught? Another good little skirmish for them happening outside that final checkpoint. So Onslaught can now start pushing in. ProsperLogic in decent positioning, pushed up with that accursed arm as well. He wants to try and get every bit of point he can. As soon as Closar comes out, he has to pay the tax. ProsperLogic gets aggressive, getting behind TooTTooT and pumping in some damage. Skeppii as well, but even still, tons of time being bought by this Ashe, and Celestial, or rather Onslaught, have to start falling back. I'm so used to describing Celestial as the offensive team, but it's Onslaught pushing this time, and they're going to regroup for a moment as they get a big kill into Closar.
Just being able to set this up. Skeppii holding a really good angle and being able to find shots like that. That's where it will matter. Getting aggressive, getting into the side, and going pretty much unnoticed until the very end. That just allows them to collapse in and melt anyone that stands in their way.
And it should, I would think, be a successful push. There's no one up to come out to try and touch, and yes, it will indeed be the successful push. And this is big for Onslaught, man. I don't want to undersell it because nothing was working for them. It didn't work on Breitbart. It didn't work on Serpent Beach. It didn't look like it was working on Warder's Gate, but they finally have the mid fight they're looking for. A thing to think about, though, is that was with Fast Cap, right, Gore? I mean, can they do that same thing on a straight up even fight?
That is the question of the day, right? I mean, it's going to come down. Slop now has Bulldozer 2, so you're not looking at Luna being able to be as potent. Also, it's going to take twice the amount of time, essentially, for Luna sitting on that objective in order to work. I don't know, there's a lot of pressure right now on Onslaught's shoulders. If they can keep those kills coming up, just one pick at a time even. It doesn't have to be double kills. It doesn't have to be triple kills. They don't have to be flashy. Just keep it in kind of a perpetual 4v5 where Celestial can't really take the fight. Then you're going to be looking at them finding a win.
Another midnight to start the fight, but Skeppii answers back well. This is a good ulti from stormavatar, buys himself some time as well. They were willing to commit the resources. Even Inflame was dropped, but StopMe has now taken care of Goodlad as well. The heals are strong. stormavatar, though, has to reposition, gets back with the squad, and they take care of Closar nicely as well. A double kill for ProsperLogic as this Androxus is finally starting to see some life here as well. Trensiq happy to get involved on the kill feed too, and Celestial starting to get stalled out here. Maybe Miser, we are in for a longer set than we thought as Onslaught keep up the pressure.
And it's based on their priority. The fact that StopMe hasn't been able to have the same round that he did in round one is huge for Onslaught more than anything. It's keeping them alive and in this. And now you're looking at ults coming up like a Cursed Arm. This is the perfect time to use it. You're going to have the 100% right before the point is captured. Use it, melt someone, and get out.
That's exactly what he looks to do, but doesn't quite get the kill. TooTTooT shuts him down in return. 96%, but it's Celestial that are in control of the point right now. Skeppii has found himself some decent positioning. I say it, but StopMe has the head on a swivel. Slop was there too, and they shut him down. Now it's Celestial's turn to try and control the center to get a bit aggressive, and Closar finding some decent shots, repositioning back. But Prosper dashing in aggressively leaves himself with few options, and Slopodopolous answers back nicely, but it's 99 to 96 here now. StopMe, the only one in the center area for Celestial, getting a little bit of backup now. There's the whirlwind from Trensiq to buy his squad some time, but he's on a bit of an island up here. The overtime starting to count down, but TooTTooT is still up on this Ashe and can continue to contest. Things are really starting to get down to the line. Skeppii gets TooTTooT, but Closar gets Trensiq. It's another back and forth match, but maybe Skeppii could be the difference maker, finding a couple more kills. Goodlad is the one that finally shuts down StopMe. It's just one last Zhin that's left on the point, trying to buy a little bit of time here as Closar continues to dash around. How has he bought this much time? But it wasn't enough. Onslaught finally get the actual capture.
There's so many things to highlight. First off, Prosper and Skeppii finally stepping up. Like, this is the Onslaught that I've been missing. This is what I'd missed last week, what I've been missing so far today in the first two games playing. I'm glad to see this showing up, though, in the way that they are. But I have to give the MVP play out of all of that to the Grover, of all people. And it's just the fact that a Dread Serpent comes out on the point. And that's going to be enough, especially at 99%, to hold you away long enough to tick to a 100 and give Selestial that point. He hits that whirlwind for the CC immunity. The health is also going to be nice, but that CC immunity coming through to make sure they can keep overtime going and that it's not going to be a guaranteed pick for Selestial keeps them going in this game. And it's just, it makes me wonder, where was this the first 2 times, the 2 maps that we watched through, right? Where have they been? I guess I'm happy to see him show up, but it's definitely been a slow start here for Onslaught.
Yeah, no need to gift them 2 maps in this set, right? It's just going to make your job so much harder. TooTTooT is locked down in no man's land, but somehow still breathes life on this earth. Slopodopolous is the one that ends up falling to ProsperLogic. And Onslaught have gone from defensive and just holding on to now having a legitimate chance to put this map to bed here on Mortar's Gate and maybe grab the win. The Accursed Arm even does get the kill onto Closar. They'll shut him down too. The contest is happening, but now that TooTTooT's down, who can do it? They take care of Slopodopolous, and just like that, we're moving on to a 4th map.
Just keep us in it. Just keep us alive, and I think you stay afloat right now. It's 1 map at a time if you're Onslaught, because if you lose 1, you're out. But that is the way to take it, right? And Finch, still, that map started rough for them. That's something to keep in mind for them. I think they're definitely going to have to, well, open up the possibilities, their draft. And it's going to be this screen that's the best example. Selestial have 2 COT2s, 2 COT3s, but they invested a lot into Haven, a lot into Resilience, and even some Master Writings. They didn't do a lot to counter the Io and the Luna, and they didn't invest as heavily into dealing with the healing. And when you have 3 supports on the other side, yes, Haven's going to be really solid because they're all direct damage, but it's not going to be as important, I think, as shutting down that healing. There's still a lot going into the late game to top off and keep members of Onslaught alive. I mean, even here, you isolate and get rid of the Grover. Luna, or Io, I should say, is still alive. Furia is still alive, still able to top people off in 2 to 3 clicks kind of deal, and just a couple of seconds of healing. So it's going to be no issue for them to stay in the fight. And I think that's where the long game ended up playing better for Onslaught, just because of how Celestial kind of bought their items.
And it is starting to make me wonder about those picks and bans yet again. I mean, Celestial had been banning that IO, making sure that Onslaught couldn't have it all game long. I mean, Gorby asked, what changed? How did they suddenly show up now? Well, maybe that's it. Maybe now they've got that key cog that makes this composition work in this IO, and Celestial need to go back to taking that away.
I mean, there was a team in Brazil, I can't remember which one we were talking about, it might have been In Control, where it was a very similar concept where it's like, cool, you're winning all the games when you're not against IO, and you're losing all the games when you're against IO. It's like figuring out how to deal with IO as a meta. And it's so difficult every time I find myself wanting to say Luna, because let's face it, the important part of the kit is the Luna. Io is just the best girl, controlling the best girl that is Luna, that is going to control the point for you. So it's a lot of good fight, I would argue, and I wouldn't mind seeing her banned. I love watching Io play, but let's be real, she deserves to be banned. I'm going to have to give that one to everybody. But you ban the Jenos and let the Io through this time. Maybe you swap that around and feel a little bit better. This is another map. We had mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Bomb King, but I would love a Luminary Bomb King on this map more than anything. If Celestial or Onslaught can get that, I think it makes it a much easier match to win.
Well, the Victor has been banned away. We've seen some really big barrages in these first 4 weeks leading up until now, and I think I get why this Victor's been basically permabanned from Celestial this whole time. They don't want to deal with it, and they are going to go back to banning that Io here from Onslaught, so they're going to have to show us they can make this composition work when they don't have her as that centerpiece. Onslaught also choosing to take away the Terminus, and now the Grover that they've actually been very reliant on up until now. A bit surprised.
Yeah, I mean, in a time where they've been going double support, and you typically want one of the two to be kind of like a hybrid, which Grover fits perfectly into. He's going to deal a decent amount of damage, but you can focus on that healing as well. Seeing him banned away by Onslaught, in my mind, means they're going to try something, again, very different for their draft. I'm wondering if it's going to be on that kind of Luminary boosted side, or if they're going to maybe just pick up kind of more or less the same of what they've been going for.
Definitely going to be involving that Luminary boost, and Vivian could do a lot of work when she is pumped up. So already looking good with these first 2 picks for Onslaught. And if I'm being honest, so far Zhin has not looked great in this set, has he? I mean, Well, he ends up getting heavily prioritized on one side and then not getting a whole lot of value back out for it. They are going to pair that with the Ashe, and I think TooTTooT played this quite well. And they're going to have the Inara, so a double tank comp here from Celestial, which is actually more normal, I guess, is fair to say.
Yeah, he's back in the, the realm of standard more than anything, where it's like, cool, now realistically to end this out, I expect a DPS and a support. And that support could be something like a Ying, and that DPS, I want to say it again, but I really would like it if it was a Bomb King. It doesn't have to be. It could also be Drogo's on a map like this, although it'd be difficult to run that directly into the Vivian and the Khan. But we have seen a lot of potency out of him on Ice Mines in the past, so it's not something to completely glance over as an option.
Well, it will be the Furia and the Bomb King. So there you go, Gormizer. Not too bad at all. Correctly recognizing that the BK would eventually be rolling on through. And so this is a pretty good composition here from Celestial, right? This is standard old Paladins that I was expecting when I was coming in. Not all this extra that we've been seeing. And I think Celestial put themselves in a great spot. Meanwhile, Onslaught just could be running the one tank double support comp that we've come to know from them on their side.
I'm actually really excited for him. Willo is going to have very low threat against her, right? No one's going to be able to shoot her that easily. Ashe might be able to, but Zhin, the projectiles move a little wonky, so it's going to be difficult to take her out of the air in the Fae Flight. I think that Willo actually might be the key to success with a Jenos behind her, Luminary boosting those blasts. This is looking really solid for Onslaught. Ying makes up for the healing that you're not going to be getting from Jenos, which allows him to even go for more damage, to look for like more shots. You just focus on where is my buff. And then you get a Vivian on that side as well. I just think it's going to melt through a lot of the shields that Ashe and Inara are going to put up.
Could be difficult. They're going to have to find some kind of way to deal with this Willo. And as you mentioned, they may have already come in poorly equipped for that task. But we'll see how it is the boys Celestial end up handling it. Remember, they won 10 points in a row. Bright March and Serpent Beach went down without any contestation. Then on Warder's Gate was when Onslaught started to come alive. They finally had that IO, and they held steadfast. But now they have to do it on Ice Mines without it, Gore, and things might get tough again.
This is one of those maps where draft is very, very important, but it also is based on the teams. Some teams just figured out how to play here, not only in draft, but like the style, how much aggression, where to push and kind of poke and prod. And that will be what seals the deal. And right here, like, I don't know if I like this Khan getting this aggressive.
Yeah, Trensiq goes in, and Slopodopolous is like, okay, I'm Bomb King. I'm going right up and over the shield, my man. And he just starts pumping out the damage. Really no way for Trensiq to get back out at that point when he committed. So Celestial control the center, have started to build up some percent, and this is where Ice Mines can feel tough. This exact sort of narrow choke point that the BK is able to just pump damage through. Meanwhile, TooTTooT is holding down the only other means of ingress for Onslaught. It's going to be tough from trying to push their way through. Now that the Khan is here, they've got their opportunity, but look at the backline. They're still taking damage from Stop Me as well as from Slop.
You have 3 ways onto the objective. One was covered by Bomb King, one was covered by Ashe, and the other one, when you try to start walking through it, everyone just turns their attention to it. It's long lines of sight through that tunnel there, so difficult to go through. But this is why, in a very weird turn of events, I can talk about it, the double tank is very helpful. Ashe can get aggressive and like be the bodyguard for the Bomb King, and Inara can just stand on the point, something that Inara does better than pretty much any other frontline because she's so difficult to kill.
Skeppii comes in to try and find one more touch there, Gore, but it just isn't happening. And I wonder how much of this really does come down to that Khan decision to kind of try and dive the BK early on. And he ends up in a position where not only is he not effectively diving, but there's no way back out for him either, and suddenly leaves Onslaught without a tank.
I mean, if you overextend, if you try to fight into Bomb King specifically as a Khan, you're going to have a bad time. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be good for you. Not going to be healthy at the end of the day either. So something that is easy for them to counter and kind of measure out is if Trensiq gets aggressive, well, we know exactly who to send in from Celestial to deal with it. And it's going to be Slopodopolous, who again, and this is something I like to tout whenever we have a DPS player that does this, but I think hit scan when I think Slop. I maybe think Cassie. Maybe you can throw out some other things. I don't think Blaster. So the fact that he's flexing onto a Bomb King and making it look this good is just another thing worth mentioning. Because I think flexibility in picks, it's something Skeppii does very well as well, is one of the most important things, especially in this meta where it seems like anything can happen at any given time. Having a wide champion pool is easily the most important thing to have on your team.
Stormavatar might have just been a bit out of range there with that ultimate, but it still was looking good. Speaking of the flexibility you mentioned there, of course, Stop Me has been very flexible this set, hasn't he? He's back onto tanks here now. He's the pilot for that Inara. This is a good defense for Onslaught. They're really stalling out Celestial here. But I think that's a great point, man. The ability to sort of allow your team to flex into any drafts. I mean, think about how valuable the Willo was getting the last pick of that and just being flexible as a team and then knowing that just about anyone on your squad can play it or that you've got more options. I think that that's a big deal in Paladins the way we're seeing it played right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And well, unfortunately for TooTTooT, he's not able to get the up down there. But having almost all of their ults available here for Celestial at like 30 seconds left. This is a map where if you don't get the push, you don't care, right? It's not that big a deal. It's not the end of the world for you. We went years on this map before, well, not years, but it feels like a 4-0 was once every now and then, right? Like, you would get it if a team was just distinctly better than another, but most of the time you get used to seeing 4-3s for this reason. It's an easily defended map because of how well shaped this defensive zone is. The high ground that you're able to be given as well as the vision down onto the payload makes it easy.
Prosper has gotten a double kill here. Stop Me ends up falling as well. That should be enough for Onslaught to really put this push to bed. It absolutely is. The defense comes out successfully. But as he said, I don't think that's a tremendous surprise or anything like that. The real question for me is, are we going to see a run back on this mid fight? Because really, Celestial got into great positioning early and never really had to give it up. They weren't challenged on it again and had to respond to it. Let's see if Onslaught can maybe do a good job sort of bunker bustering and getting through this time, or maybe even not giving up such fantastic position.
Well, they're going to have to do it against what I'm going to assume is an inflamed team, which will be very difficult. And it's so interesting to think of because Ying, I would argue I like the healing maybe. No, there's no way to argue that. I like the healing that Ying's ult is going to give that illusory rift. But it's hard to argue against damage and movement speed that you're going to be getting out of the Inflame. And you, again, put it on a Bomb King and you give him control, especially against something that he counters like the Khan. It's going to be very difficult for Trensiq or anybody on the side of Onslaught to be able to try and break through. And so they just ignore it. They're not even going to try to fight the Bomb King in this zone anymore.
That's where they had their issues last time. So Trensiq instead is going to be on back of point, gets stunned out, but still alive. Skeppii gets a kill against Slopodopolous, so Trensiq now doesn't have to worry about this Bomb King and can just start charging forward, setting up for Goodlad to get a kill and to Stop Me. They do end up losing Prosper forward, but so far this is all still value down for Onslaught. Znost, the only one left, he gets pushed out and control belongs to Onslaught.
And that's going to be a good grab, again, trying to make sure that Ashe is under control as long as possible. Unfortunately, Trensiq maybe bites off a little bit more than he can chew, but it's enough to force Celestial back, right? And this answers kind of your question, which was, will Onslaught have the capabilities of holding back on equal footing against Celestial? And you get the Fae Flight up in the air, and again, not a lot of people who can counter her on the side of Celestial, so that's going to be free-firing Willo with a Luminary boost right now. Maybe not a big amount of kills since everyone's just hanging out indoors, but it's time bought by Onslaught.
Ultra from Stormavatar does end up clipping, and Klosar will fall later on as a result. The actual positioning on the point reclaimed as Trensiq gets a big kill. He actually grabs Stop Me as well, and Stop Me becomes a sitting duck. That's a double kill for Trensiq, even gets in position to help Goodlad get a kill. Where has this Onslaught been all set? They are suddenly playing with a fire underneath them, Gorbizers. They shut down 3, capture the point, and now they're pushing out.
And they're adapting so well. That's the thing that's, I think, more important than anything, is just looking and recognizing what went wrong in that first point fight. What do we have to do to change it? Okay, let's not push on, the right side of the objective. Let's go ahead and leave Bomb King to his own volition. We'll go off on the side, wait for your overpower, wait for the Fae Flight. Don't just throw out ults out for the sake of throwing ults out, and see where it goes. And so far, it's been able to do this. I mean, it was a 4v5. Now Zhin's going to respawn. It's still going to be a 4v5. Then Inara's going to respawn. It's still a 4v5. At this point, they're keeping it more closer to a 3v5 with how many times they're going to be able to pick up kills. And that's forcing Celestial back into the base.
Got them too staggered at this point to put up the same kind of defense that Onslaught themselves did a moment ago. They've already got the payload beyond. where Celestial had it when they were the ones that were on offense, which should make things a bit easier for them next time. Here is that Fame Fight that you were mentioning earlier as Skeppii takes to the sky. Doesn't really find a ton off the back of this, but no one can step out either for fear that they'll be in the line of sight. That's good damage through the wall. Trensiq trying to follow up on it, but still not able to quite claim any lives. Skeppii finally gets one to make it 7 in a row unanswered. Slop gets one trade back, so it's 4 against 4.
And being able to hold this angle, again, not something that you typically would put under Ying's job, is holding the angle to maybe keep the team aggressive. Something she can still do quite well, and Goodlad kind of showcasing that. Trensiq's about to have overpower again. I don't know if I want him to use it at the end here, especially since they just use the Illusory Rift, try to keep as many assets as you can. But knowing that you have that as a potential avenue to try and turn this into a 3-0 is huge.
Stormavatar takes a shot with his ultimate again, doesn't quite find it. Celestial is now repositioned to try and defend, but this is still good positioning from Onslaught here as well. A lot of what makes this choke point so hard to defend has already been given up by Celestial. So low are Slopodopolous there on the back of that, but what about Trensiq? They finally force my man back and have reestablished themselves. So only 15 seconds to speak with, but TooTTooT falls again. Onslaught still 5 members healthy. They don't have a ton of ultimates at their disposal, but I think they're going to take a crack at this score. They've now lost ProsperLogic though, and that's going to make things a lot harder without the Vivian. Skeppii does take care of Closar, but maybe Celestial have finally done enough, depending on how much Onslaught are willing to commit to make this happen. In fact, they get Jenos to use his ultimate. That's big.
Yeah, I would never have called that, or at least seen that one coming. They have 2 tanks to be able to hold this, so I don't expect them to fall easily, especially with the kills that are going to be coming out. And this is something that I feel like it could have been a lot easier, but Celestial actually have lost 3 people. They still have that respawn advantage, which is going in their favor.
I think that's really what ends up saving them there in the end, is that obviously you're closer to the fight with your respawn, much closer than where the offensive team is there. So we're all tied up 2-2, and I think that score line makes a ton of sense here on Ice Mines, and how it has happened makes a ton of sense too. But as we start to get a bit later into this game, I mean, are Celestial still going to be able to keep up? Onslaught are starting to look like it's going to be hard to answer them.
Yeah, I think it's good for them that they pull out that Inflame at the very end there, but
yeah.
Again, well, I was going to argue what they had to commit to get it is going to be bad, but, well, you look at the ult charges, they don't seem to be worse for wear much on the side of Onslaught. But it's been interesting, and this is something that I used to get to talk about with triple tank versus a standard composition. Now it's weird talking about a standard composition versus, I guess, the single tank Onslaught are running, which is that if you kill Ashe, there's still Inara, right? And if you kill Inara, there's still Ashe. They have someone else to take that place and kind of control the zone a little bit better. And unfortunately for, well, Celestial, they control the zone so well that Slop is gone.
Yeah, Trensiq just is able to take TooTTooT out of the fight, as well as they both end up falling and then rotate around for what looks like a double as he shuts down Stop Me as well. Trensiq really has kicked it into another gear on this con. Prosper has now moved his way around, has the Sentinels helping out too as he continues to pump out the damage. And the zone is here and in really strong effect. TooTTooT going to buy a little bit of space for the team, try and force his way in with the assert dominance, gets grabbed right away, but this is all in the name of Celestial trying to regain some ground. It's 87% for Onslaught. They've built up during all of this, and I don't know how many more tools are left. Stop Me has finally made his way in. Slopodopolous gets a kill here too, but Goodlad and Skeppii answer back, but they do shut down Prosper, who's been a big part of this. They're working with the Inflame, but it can't keep Stop Me and Znost alive. Onslaught are still in really good position in the cap.
You can take down Trensiq, you can take down Prosper, you can take down everyone you want on that team, but someone is going untouched right now, and that is Skeppii. And it is the same thing, like at the end of Picks and Bans, I highlighted it, and it's just that there's no one to really counter out this Willo. And earlier on, I think, the end of the first mid-fight, we saw Fae Flight come out where it was just trying to touch the objective. No other reason, nothing else to do that. But they don't have any hit scan to deal with it. Once Skeppii goes up in the air with that ult around this mid-fight, where are you going to be looking? Where are you going to be trying to shoot? You're not going to be finding her. And now you are getting ults connecting on the side of Onslaught that are not the easiest ones to pull off. Things like that through time and space connecting. It just makes such a huge difference for Onslaught. Again, kind of feels like a slow start for them, but based on the way they went last map and based on the way things are going this map, it's more than enough to get them back into the running for this set.
And really, on this map and on Warder's Gate, I mean, didn't they just start off with one bad team fight, and not even a bad whole team fight? It's just like it initially went so poorly, they never even had a chance to team fight, it feels like. And that's what's happened for these first 2 points, and Onslaught have overcome that quite well, I would say, to still put themselves into a position to succeed. Trensiq has now claimed the life of TooTTooT, and that should open up a bit more space for Onslaught. Let's start continuing this aggression, see if they can get around this next point. They're going to walk down Slopodopolous on this Bomb King who was isolated. Stop Me will fall as well. So Onslaught certainly will be able to round this next bend and start looking for a bit more.
Just a little too high on that last shot. Otherwise, Skeppii would have had another kill on his belt. And he's got the Faith Flight ready. There's a Jenos sitting slowly and right behind, ready to pop a Luminary boost and make sure that stays up. The only downside is that there's no Illusory Rift to then give him so much healing that you couldn't take him down, right? Like, it's just, how much can we invest into this Willo to make it work? Because I think a Faith Flight here, if you go in, you get aggressive 15 seconds after maybe getting a pick, especially with Overpower coming up, you can win this right now, right here. If you're Onslaught, you just have to coordinate your ults pretty well together.
It's going to be the call from Onslaught is how much do they want to expend? Now that Klosar is taking care of Trensiq, though, he has been, to me, the real linchpin for all of this. Slopodopolous takes care of Goodlad, too, and that really is going to cut into their chances of making this push happen. Now Onslaught, the fallback, really bide their time for one big OT push, but there's no world they could do it if they end up losing the Vivian here, so it's so critical if she ends up surviving and that Zhin could not quite get that kill. There it does end up happening. Prosper goes down. No more defense, or rather push, going to be happening. It's 3-3 Gore onto our last mid-fight here on Ice.
Sentinel's about to come up for Prosper, so that damage boost is going to be helpful. But I see Klosar being able to find a really, really good spite onto somebody, stop me with a decent stun. I think the beginning of this next mid-fight is because it's 3-3, it is the most important start to a team fight that you're going to have. But you have to look at Slop. The first round, he absolutely decimates Trensiq, and then the rest of it just kind of falls into place. Second round, he has some control over his own zone, but unfortunately, Onslaught recognized that and just circumvent him. They go somewhere else to make sure that it's not going to be that potent and powerful of a pick. And then third round, he tries to counter that by going the same place they do, and he just gets melted before he can do anything. So Slop's start to this round might be the key for Celestial winning, and it could be the key for Onslaught to be able to seal the deal if they can just take care of him early.
Keep in the back of your mind, Onslaught have 3 caught threes at this point, and here's the spike you were mentioning. Klosar gets all the way back there to Skeppii, and even though he dies, I think that might have been worth it, Gormizer. They finally got rid of the Willo. Slopodopolous gets Trensiq as well. Those two were the problems, in particular for Celestial. Now they're up to 66%, and Onslaught have no chance of getting to push past it. They're heading back to try and figure out where this Vivian is. They've locked her down. Prosper only gets 96%, forcing their way in on their mounts. They do manage to get in and find the touch, so they shut down Znost and Slopodopolous in response. Klosar falls too, so Onslaught, even though they look like disaster, have gotten enough kills to keep this going.
Now they just have to hold on to this. Going from 0 to 99 on Ice Mines with a good zone is very easily possible in terms of control. The question is whether or not they can do it. How much can you push forward without giving away too much? It's already at 50%. You've knocked down the people that you need to knock down. There's no one going to be on a mount. They're just looking for an overtime touch, if anything, here. But you've got Faith Flight, you've got the Illusory Rift, you've got some good combos in your pockets.
Well, that's why they want to let Onslaught or not Onslaught, but Celestial push up this point for a good Faith Flight, but I don't know if this is quite the angle that Skeppii had been looking for this whole time. Does get some decent damage onto the backline. The overtime is ticking. It's actually Onslaught that are trying to keep this game alive, whereas Celestial are in control, and they're able to do enough to force them off and find the cap, Gormizer. That was so tough. Onslaught were the ones that were in control there, right?
Yeah, it's just Trensiq takes a couple steps forward to try and get some control, looking for a good commander's grab, dash, and get someone. And unfortunately for him, Bomb King was in the perfect area of Willo can't hit me and no one can kill me, so I can just couple of bombs here and lock you down. And I mean, okay, so Zhin was 5 and 15.
Yeah, I
So
just
by
don't know
no
if it's good
means
enough.
did it do like a crazy amount where, oh my god, he's the reason they win. But he's kind of the reason they win. And it comes down to that spite, right? And it's just
Fighting
those
Skeppii.
small moments. That spite was right through the window in such a weird spot. I didn't expect it. It blew my mind. But he hit Skeppii of all people while Bomb King is using his King Bomb around the other side to get a stun. So it was just perfect lockdown at the very end to get some kills, and that gives Celestial the 99%, right? Then you have to look at the fact that, unfortunately for Trensiq, he is a solo tank and walked kind of right at a Bomb King. And, well, in most cases, that's never a good idea, and in this case, it was also a bad idea. So this was the King Bomb stunning out the Khan and killing off the Khan, but Klosar hitting that ult is maybe one of the better things. Like, that in tandem duo ult that came through was the only reason I think Celestial had such a commanding grip on that last point.
It's so interesting, huh? Because Onslaught are the ones that showed us the ability to bounce back after losing 10 points in a row. But the individual player who kind of bounced back from really a tough game was Klosar to make the game-ending play, you could potentially say there. And then Trensiq, I think, with maybe a slight lapse, there was so much going on, I'm not so sure, but ends up kind of in a bad spot there, too, and ends up sealing out the game. But that's what's so important, man, about keeping your mentality in the right spot. Because I was getting ready to come out of that post-game and go, Zen's not doing enough. Instead, what's our line, right? It's that he makes the game-sealing play.
And I think it's, onto an appropriate target, because when you look back at what that Willo was able to do and what Onslaught were able to do, because even though this one's going to, get marked as a loss for them, I think the last two games were more of a showcase of the potency, not only of them, but also how strong Europe is in terms of fighting each other right now, that they go that distance and that long. But that Willo was like a really not only solid pick, but played really well. If Skeppii doesn't die there, then this is probably a different story.
So Celestial end up winning 3-1. District 69 won their match too. So Chromospace were able to find a little bit of success, but not enough. 5 randoms, 3-0 Rosvet as well. So District 69 remain up near the top. But now Celestial starting to slowly inch a bit closer towards them, as are 5 randoms. Maybe we are starting to finally get a little bit of separation here in Europe, Gore.
And I think with Celestial taking that win, like District 69 is still on top, and admittedly, I expect them to be for a while until we see them potentially face off against someone like Celestial or 5 randoms. And 5 randoms is the other team. Like Celestial and 5 randoms both fall under the category of pleasantly surprising to me. They did not have maybe the cleanest start to the phase, but so far they've been able to collect themselves. And even though you have a team like District 69 that's 5-0, these 2-3-2 teams are giving them a run for their money. And I expect that those will be the more difficult matchups going forward for District 69. Dealing with 5 randoms, dealing with Celestial, it's going to be a different beast to tackle.
It's about keeping yourself in striking distance, Gore. I don't think you have to get it done in week 1 by any means, right? You're going to have your cracks at District 69 if you are Celestial, if you are 5 randoms. And they've done, I think, enough to keep themselves in range where if they find a week where they topple District 69, then they're right there in the running to potentially get that first seed later on. So that's really what it's about, man. Staying in striking distance, doing well enough over time to where you can eventually topple the big guys and get up there yourself.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're able to do. For most of these teams, especially like if you're looking at certain teams like in Brazil, some teams in North America, your goal is, maybe not bottom 2 because you don't want to get relegated out. But for others, specifically because of where they're placed in the standings right now, if you're 5 randoms, if you're Celestial, if you're in that 2 and 3 spot, the only place to go is up from there. And so your goal is to study District 69, look at what they're doing, try to take them down, and find those strengths where other teams can't. Chromospace hasn't been able to, Onslaught hasn't been able to. We'll have to see what other teams, or what these 2 teams specifically in my mind, can bring to try and control that top behemoth that is D69.
Well, Europe continues to be close, Score Miser. What looked like a 3-0 turned into a hotly contested Warder's Gate as well as Ice Mines, and that's just in Europe. We still have Brazil coming up here in just a few moments, so do not consider leaving or going anywhere else. Get right back here for Brazil after the break.